from the outside, there's a lot of movement and a lot of uncertainty happening at Zillow at the moment. Just to recap the memory, Zillow recently announced that it was closing its iBuying unit, and that's resulted in tons of layoffs as the companies had to cut its projections and cut its staff just to cut costs. And so seeing stories like waves of layoffs are leaving employees reeling at Zillow. If you've worked in HR, if you've worked in the human capital space for any amount of time, you realize quickly that the offboarding experience is typically neglected when you think about the entirety of an employee experience, when in reality, the offboarding experience needs to be as robust and thoughtful as the onboarding experience. Because the way somebody leaves an organization is arguably the most important part of a reputation of a company as an employer going forward. You often see companies that neglect the offboarding portion of the employment contract have poor Glassdoor reviews and poor star ratings on that front, just as a function of not having been thoughtful about the offboarding experience. A lot of effort, of course, and it's natural, is paid to the onboarding experience because that's the excitement of bringing on new talent and things. But when you see companies that have to deal with mass layoffs, one of the parts that, or one of the aspects that's important to think about is how are they dealing with what is an incredibly disruptive and almost traumatic time for a lot of the employees. The employees will sit on bated breath, wondering, am I one of the ones who are going to be laid off? How do they feel about the individuals who are fortunate enough to stay? All the things around messaging from management's perspective in terms of the way they communicate the layoffs to employees has to be thought through. And a lot of the times with high growth and these kind of high-flying tech companies, you saw it with Away too, actually, in the way that management spoke to its employees. And there's a lot that goes into an offboarding experience or an offboarding announcement that needs to be thought about, and I feel like often isn't paid as much attention. So we've talked about this in other prior episodes, but an easy way that companies can really think about it and ease the load of what is a disruptive and stressful time is to take on, or sign on a vendor that does something like Outplacement. And that allows an organization to just offload a lot of the stuff that helps people ease their minds when it comes to finding new employment. Typically, the issue isn't that people are losing their jobs. It's always the uncertainty around, am I going to be able to find something soon? Am I going to be able to cover my mortgage, for example? Am I going to be able to feed my family? And those are the questions that a great outplacement services firm, especially one that the employees are able to touch base with actual human beings all the time versus get offloaded to technology, helps with. So, if you're able to, as an offboarding process, say, hey, XYZ, we're going to link you up with this firm. And their whole purpose is to make sure that you're ready for the job market, and they're going to make the time that you land in your next role as efficient and as short as possible. That helps a lot with the mental aspects and the psychology of being laid off. When you have mass layoffs at the scale of Zillow, it's even more important because you start to get that mob mentality that really affects your employee experience, and it really affects your reputation as an employer going forward. Because when you get people who band together because they've all been, given, for example, a collective layoff notice, you get that the harbingering of negative thoughts, and then people become brave enough to go and leave en masse negative reviews about an organization. So when you see a story like Zillow is having to deal with layoffs and then the employees are reeling, it's important as practitioners of HR and marketing and an employer brand to think about the tactics that are involved. If you were ever in this situation, what would you do to avoid this, to avoid the feeling of employees reeling and the employees being upset? And it's all about making sure that your offboarding process is thoughtful and thought through, and a quick and easy way to, and really it's actually a positive return kind of way to approach offboarding, is to deal with your internal messaging yourself. That's something that management and styles there come into play. You can, of course, offload to a third party, but it's important that you do something like Outplacement to make sure that you get that sorted.